All right, let's go. The tile under your feet is cold through your socks because the safe house in Lowe's Machis doesn't run heat at night, and the man sitting across the small kitchen table from you has not blinked in 11 seconds, which you have been counting because that is the kind of thing you notice when you have been running for 14 months and your body no longer distinguishes between paranoia and instinct. 10. The geography of disappearing. Sinaloa Cartel Infrastructure, 2014-2016, the Tunnel Network. It is the middle of February 2014, and you are standing at the bottom of a vertical shaft in a neighborhood in Culiacan, Sinaloa, that from street level looks like a half-finished residential block, the kind that gets built in increments, one floor at a time, as money allows. The shaft is approximately 11 meters deep, which you know not because anyone told you, but because you counted the ladder rungs going down, and each rung is spaced at 30 centimeters. The passage at the bottom is wide enough for a grown man to walk through without turning sideways, which was a deliberate engineering decision. There is ventilation. There is lighting on a circuit. There is a modified rail system running along the tunnel floor, the kind of cart you would recognize from a mining operation if you had ever worked in a mine, which you have not, but the men who built this did. The routine expectation was that this shaft, and the 42 others that federal authorities would eventually map across Culiacan and the surrounding municipalities, was a logistics corridor, product moving one direction, payment moving the other. What was not routine was that one specific tunnel, number 7 in what the DEA would later designate as the primary Sinaloa subnetwork, also served as a residential exit route for one man. That detail was not in any blueprint that changed hands during construction. The cart runs on a modified motorcycle engine, stripped of its frame and mounted horizontal to the rail guide. You can smell the exhaust before you hear the engine, because the tunnel carries air from the Culiacan end toward the exit point, which emerges inside the drainage system beneath a municipal street approximately 1.5 kilometers northeast of the shaft you descended. The man who built this, not supervised the construction, built it, laid the rail himself over a period of 3 months working 6-hour shifts, is a Sinaloa cartel logistics coordinator known in subsequent DEA documentation as Subject 14. He is approximately 40 years old, heavyset, and he keeps a hand-drawn schematic in his left breast pocket that he updates in pencil when the routing changes. He is the one who tells you the timing on the ventilation cycle. He is the one who explains that the cart can carry 2 men and approximately 80 kilograms of additional weight at a speed that covers the 1.5 kilometers in under 6 minutes. What no one in that tunnel had a clean answer for was how many routes existed that Subject 14 schematic did not show. The routes that were not in any pocket, not drawn anywhere, not in any head that federal authorities could reach. When Mexican Marines raided the Culiacan safe house on February 22, 2014, the press release issued by the Secretariat of National Defense described the operation as a success. 38 firearms were seized, vehicles were impounded, several men were detained. The official statement noted the discovery of a tunnel access point beneath a modified bathtub in the master bedroom of the structure. What the statement said was that the target of the raid escaped via this tunnel. What the statement did not say, but what was described in subsequent DEA field reports, in congressional testimony from a senior DHS official in 2015, and in accounts from Marine personnel who participated in the raid, was that the tunnel exit point had not been identified prior to the operation, that no assets were positioned at the drainage emergence point 1.5 kilometers away, and that the target had been in the structure within the last 40 minutes of entry. 40 minutes. The Marines' own internal timeline, portions of which were disclosed in a 2016 Mexican Senate inquiry, placed the gap between breach and clearance of the master bedroom at 9 minutes. The two accounts, escaped via tunnel versus the timeline of when the tunnel was reached, were placed into the record without resolution. The February 2014 Culiacan operation was officially classified by the Mexican Secretariat of National Defense as a successful interdiction resulting in the seizure of weapons and materiel consistent with cartel logistical infrastructure. The tunnel system was subsequently catalogued and sealed by federal engineering teams. The detainees were processed and transferred to federal custody. The matter of the primary target's escape was addressed in official communications as an ongoing law enforcement priority, with no further operational detail disclosed. No disciplinary review of the advance intelligence failure was placed in the public record. The tunnel's exit coordinates within the municipal drainage system were not released. But the tunnel existed for 3 months before the raid, 3 months of 6-hour construction shifts, in a neighborhood, with a modified motorcycle engine running freight on a rail system. The official account resolves the escape. The target left through the tunnel was sealed, the search continued. What it does not resolve is the 3 months prior. The supply chain for the rail components, the electrical work for the lighting circuit, the ventilation installation, all of it conducted within approximately 4 city blocks of a federal municipal government office. The distance between the tunnel shaft and that office, measured in a straight line, is 340 meters. That distance did not close when the tunnel was sealed. It has been there ever since. 9. The first morning of your last 3 days. Los Mochis, Sinaloa, January 7, 2016, approximately 4:00 a.m. It is January 7, 2016, and the house at Rio Baluarte Street in the Colonia Libertad neighborhood of Los Mochis, Sinaloa has been occupied for 11 days. You do not know this neighborhood. You know it the way you know any location assigned to you by the logistics people. You know its perimeter, you know its exits, you know which direction the nearest federal checkpoint faces. The house is 2 stories, concrete block construction, white exterior, indistinguishable from 12 other structures on the same street. The men inside number 7, not counting yourself, and they rotate in 3-hour watch shifts, which means at 4:00 a.m. 2 men are awake and 5 are not. The kitchen has a gas range that someone has kept clean. There is a television that is never turned above low volume. The expectation in the house that morning is that the day will proceed as the previous 10 have proceeded, contained, quiet, and without incident. What is not routine is that approximately 6 kilometers away, in a staging area that the house's 7 occupants have no knowledge of, 257 Mexican Marines and federal police officers are conducting final equipment checks. You notice the dog first. There is a dog 2 houses north. You have been tracking its bark pattern for 11 days because a dog that barks at a rhythm tells you nothing, but a dog that breaks rhythm tells you something has changed on the street. At 4:17 a.m. the dog stops mid-bark. Not a trailing off. A stop. The man on watch at the front window, a Sinaloa cartel security operative whose name appears in subsequent DEA documentation as a 31-year-old from Culiacan, does not react to the dog. He is watching the street. You are watching him. The detail that none of the 7 men in the house have a clean answer for is that the staging area 6 kilometers away has been in position for 11 hours, since the previous evening, and the perimeter watch on the house has not reported contact, which means the perimeter watch is either intact and unaware, or it is no longer intact. At approximately 4:30 a.m. on January 8, 2016, the raid occurred in the early hours of the 8th, not the 7th as some initial reports indicated. Mexican Marine Special Forces initiated a dynamic entry on the Rio Baluarte Street property. The official statement from the Secretariat of National Defense, issued later that morning, described the operation as the culmination of months of intelligence coordination between Mexican federal authorities and international law enforcement partners. 5 cartel operatives were killed in the subsequent firefight. 1 Marine was wounded. The primary target was not located in the structure. What the official statement said was that a secondary access point had been identified and the search was continuing. What accounts from Marine personnel, later described in a detailed reconstruction published by Proceso magazine and in testimony to Mexican Senate investigators, indicated was that the secondary access point, a hatch beneath a bedroom closet connecting to an underground passage, had not been in the pre-operation briefing materials. The January 8, 2016 Los Mochis operation was officially designated by the Secretariat of National Defense as a significant counter-narcotics action, resulting in the neutralization of 5 armed cartel personnel and the disruption of a senior cartel command node. The wounded Marine was transported and treated. The seized weapons and vehicles were catalogued. The matter of the primary target's status was classified as active and ongoing. No additional operational detail regarding the secondary access point or its terminus was released in the initial statement. A follow-on statement issued at approximately 11:00 a.m. the same morning indicated that the primary target had been located and was in custody. The gap between those two statements, from the early morning operation to the late morning announcement, was not addressed in the official record. And yet the gap is where the story lives. The official record closes neatly. Operation initiated, target acquired, custody confirmed. What it does not resolve is what occupied the hours between the pre-dawn raid and the mid-morning arrest. What occurred in the tunnel, at the drainage system exit, in the streets of Los Mochis in the hours before dawn on January 8, 2016. Witness accounts from Los Mochis residents, collected by journalists from Sinaloa and published in regional newspapers within 48 hours, described a man and a companion emerging from a sewer access point on a street several blocks from the Rio Baluarte property. They described the man as moving quickly and then not moving quickly, stopping, standing still on the street, and then sitting down on the curb. The official record does not include a street, a sewer access point, or a man sitting on a curb. 14 months of running, and it ended on a public street curb, and that detail has never been in any document that any government produced. 8. What the Sinaloa cartel looked like from inside. Daily life, hierarchy, and the unspoken rules, circa 2010-2015. It is a Tuesday in 2012, and you are sitting in a plastic chair in a room above a hardware store in a mid-sized Sinaloa town, whose name you will not use in any document, any phone call, or any conversation that occurs within earshot of someone who has not already been inside this room. The chair is plastic because plastic is easy to replace. The room has 2 exits, the staircase that brought you up and a window that opens onto a flat roof that connects to the next building. You clocked the window within 4 seconds of entering. Every man in this organization clocks windows and exits within 4 seconds of entering a room because that behavior was not taught in any orientation. It was absorbed, through proximity, within the first month of association. The man at the head of the table is not the boss. The boss is not in this room. The man at the head of the table is what the organization calls a plaza coordinator, responsible for operations across a defined geographic zone, and he is here to review logistics for a product shipment that crosses 3 municipalities this week. The routine expectation is that you will confirm your portion of the route, receive the schedule, and leave. What is not routine is that the man sitting to your left, who you have worked beside for 8 months, did not make eye contact when you sat down. The Sinaloa cartel in this period, the years between the Beltran-Leyva split in 2008 and the 2014 Culiacan raids, operated across a corporate structure that DEA analysts in multiple field reports described as the most sophisticated organizational model in the history of North American organized crime. That is institutional language. Here is what it looked like from the plastic chair. There was always a layer of men between you and anyone who mattered, and those layers were not bureaucratic. They were protective in both directions. The plaza coordinator across the table is 43 years old, and he has been doing this since he was 19, and his hands when he holds a pen are perfectly still. He does not raise his voice. No one in this organization at this level raises their voice, because raised voices carry through hardware store ceilings, and raised voices are the kind of thing that someone standing on a sidewalk might remember. What you cannot get a clean answer on is the man to your left, who still has not looked at you, and whose left knee has been motionless for the last 4 minutes, a man who is normally incapable of sitting still. The internal structure of the Sinaloa cartel during this period was extensively documented in DEA EPIC, El Paso Intelligence Center, reports, in federal indictments filed in the Southern District of New York, and in testimony from cooperating witnesses during the 2018-2019 trial of Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Loera at the Eastern District of New York. The official version, the one in the indictments, described a hierarchical command structure with Guzman at the apex, Ismael El Mayo Zambada as co-principal, and descending layers of regional coordinators, plaza bosses, route managers, and operational cells. What the cooperating witnesses described in testimony that was admitted into evidence and therefore became part of the official record, was something the indictment language did not fully capture, that the organization's primary enforcement mechanism was not violence, which is what most people assume, but information control. Who knew what, at what level, at what time? The man to your left not making eye contact is information. It is the most important kind. The organizational structure of the Sinaloa cartel as it existed in the 2010-2015 period was formally addressed in the Eastern District of New York proceedings culminating in the February 2019 conviction of Joaquin Guzman Loera on all 10 counts, including engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise. The verdict was delivered after approximately 6 weeks of trial and encompassed conduct spanning multiple decades and numerous international jurisdictions. The organizational portrait presented at trial was officially entered into the record as the most comprehensive prosecution of a major transnational criminal organization in United States federal court history. What was not addressed in the verdict, the sentencing, or any subsequent official document was the operational continuity of the organization during and after the prosecution, the extent to which the structure described at trial continued to function through and beyond the removal of its nominal apex. But the conviction resolved the man. It did not resolve the machine. Every prosecutor, every DEA field report, every indictment acknowledged, in language that was careful, measured, and institutional, that the removal of an individual leader from a network of this complexity does not constitute the dismantlement of the network. That acknowledgement is in the record. It is the one sentence in every official document that the rest of the document spends 50 pages pretending isn't true. The Sinaloa cartel's estimated annual revenue in the years following the 2016 arrest continued to be cited in subsequent U.S. Treasury Department reports in figures requiring a second counting. The man in the plastic chair got convicted. The plastic chairs are still there. Before we go any further, if you've made it this deep in, you already know this channel doesn't do filler. Every entry is sourced, constructed, and told from the inside out. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Because what's coming in the next 7 entries is the part that most channels don't have the patience to tell correctly. Hit subscribe. We're going back in. 7. The actress and the interview that ended the run. Sean Penn, Kate Del Castillo, and the meeting that generated a coordinate October 2, 2015. It is October 2, 2015, and you are in a ranch structure in the mountains of Durango State, Mexico, accessible by a dirt road that branches 3 times from the nearest paved surface and takes 45 minutes by vehicle from that pavement. The structure is not a compound in the way that word is used in news reports. It has no perimeter wall, no visible armed guard post, no helicopter pad. It looks like a working ranch because it is a working ranch, which is the point. There are cattle. There is a bunkhouse. There is a main house where the meeting will take place, and the main house has a table large enough for 8 and a kitchen where someone has been cooking since before you arrived. The man sitting at the head of the table is Joaquin Guzman Loera. He is 58 years old and wearing a button-front shirt. He is not wearing anything that signals status or power. He does not need to. The routine expectation for this meeting, arranged through an intermediary chain involving a Mexican actress named Kate del Castillo and ultimately an American actor named Sean Penn, is a conversation for a magazine article. What is not routine is that the coordinate data for this location was generated by the logistics of getting 2 American celebrities to a mountain ranch in Durango, and that data did not disappear when the meeting ended. Sean Penn arrived with a recording device and a list of questions. He is described in his own subsequent account in Rolling Stone magazine as arriving by small plane and then by vehicle through the mountain terrain. The journey took hours. Kate del Castillo, who had been corresponding with Guzman directly through a communications channel that subsequent DEA investigation would characterize as one of the most consequential intelligence threads of the entire search operation, sat at the table and translated. Guzman spoke for approximately 7 hours across the visit, consuming food, drinking, gesturing with his hands when he described geography. He was, by multiple accounts from people present, relaxed. The specific detail that no one at the table, not Penn, not del Castillo, not the security personnel, not the logistics coordinators who had arranged the travel, had a clean answer for was whether the communications trail that produced this meeting had been identified, and if so, at what point. The DEA had been monitoring del Castillo's communications since a period that Mexican authorities subsequently placed prior to this meeting date. Sean Penn's account of the meeting was published in Rolling Stone magazine on January 9, 2016, one day after the Los Machis arrest. The timing was not coincidental and was not explained in the article itself. The official statement from Mexican Attorney General Erly Gomez, delivered to the press shortly after the arrest announcement, acknowledged that the communications associated with arranging the Penn del Castillo visit had contributed to the intelligence picture that led to Los Machis. The precise nature of that contribution, which communications, which metadata, which location data, was not released. What Penn's article said was that the meeting occurred. What the Mexican Attorney General's statement said was that the meeting's logistics helped locate the man. What neither account addressed was the window between when the monitoring began and when the operation launched, the period during which the most wanted man in the world was being observed, not intercepted, because the observation was generating data that a single raid could not. The matter of the Penn del Castillo visit was officially addressed by the Mexican Attorney General's office as one element in a broader intelligence operation. No charges related to the visit were filed against Penn or del Castillo in the United States. Del Castillo faced a separate investigation in Mexico related to her communications with Guzman, which was eventually resolved without criminal conviction. Penn's Rolling Stone article was placed into the evidentiary record of the Eastern District of New York proceedings as contextual material. The official position of both the DEA and the Mexican Attorney General's office regarding the specific intelligence value of the visit, what data it generated, how that data was processed, and how precisely it contributed to the Los Machis location, was not disclosed publicly in any subsequent official document. And yet the timeline is the part that no official document resolves. The meeting, October 2, 2015. The arrest, January 8, 2016. The intervening period, 98 days. The official position is that intelligence developed during and after this period contributed to the capture. What is not resolved is why 98 days elapsed, whether the decision to observe rather than immediately act was operational, more intelligence to gather, political international coordination, or related to the 3 previous failed raids in which the target escaped through infrastructure no one had mapped. The DEA knew where Sean Penn went for 7 hours on October 2, 2015. That sentence has been in the public record since 2016. The 98 days between that sentence and the arrest remain a duration that no official document has fully populated. 6. The man who built the empire before it had a name. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Juarez cartel, and what El Chapo watched and learned. It is 1989, and you are 22 years old, and the man you are sitting across from controls more cocaine air traffic over the U.S.-Mexico border than any other single person in the Western Hemisphere. His name is Amado Carrillo Fuentes, and he will eventually be called El Señor de los Cielos, Lord of the Skis, because of the Boeing 727 cargo aircraft that he converted into narcotics transport vehicles, loading them with product in Colombian airstrips and landing them in Mexican desert strips in the pre-dawn hours. He is 30 years old. He does not look like what you expected. He is wearing slacks. He has the handshake of a man who has shaken a lot of hands. The room is a restaurant in Guadalajara, private, the back section reserved, and the food is good because Carrillo Fuentes has opinions about food, which is the kind of detail that survives a man because it is the kind of detail that humanizes him in ways that a federal indictment cannot. The routine expectation of this meeting is a conversation about route geography and territory logic. What is not routine is that the younger man in the room, the one from Batiraguato, Sinaloa, who has been in the drug trade since he was a teenager, is not just taking a meeting. He is taking notes he will never write down. Carrillo Fuentes built the Juarez cartel into the dominant trafficking organization in Mexico through a combination that DEA analysts would later describe in retrospect as unprecedented. Logistics engineering, aviation infrastructure, and political corruption at the federal level, executed simultaneously and with a patience that most organizations in this business did not have. He paid off not just police but governors, not just governors but federal ministers. He is the man who made the Guadalajara trafficking world understand that the product was only the second most important thing. The first most important thing was the system that moved it. The younger man from Sinaloa is watching him eat, watching how he talks to the waiter, watching how he sits when the conversation turns from logistics to money, the slight forward lean, the elbows on the table, the change in voice to something quieter. What no one at this table in 1989 has a clean answer for is that in 8 years, Carrillo Fuentes will be dead under circumstances that remain among the most contested in the history of Mexican organized crime, and the man watching him eat will, 2 decades after that, be sitting in a federal prison in New York having restructured the entire industry along principles he absorbed in rooms like this one. Amado Carrillo Fuentes died on July 4, 1997, in a Mexico City clinic following a plastic surgery procedure he underwent to alter his appearance. The official cause of death was listed as complications from anesthesia following cosmetic surgery. The 3 surgeons who performed the procedure were subsequently found dead, 2 in a barrel, 1 separately, within months of Carrillo Fuentes' death, which the Mexican Attorney General's office acknowledged but did not formally connect to the surgery in any charge or indictment. What the official record said was that Amado Carrillo Fuentes died of surgical complications. What the DEA field reports from that period, portions of which were declassified and made available in subsequent years, described was an intelligence picture in which multiple competing explanations for the death were live simultaneously. That the surgery went wrong, that it was made to go wrong, and that the post-surgical deaths of the physicians were either a cover-up of the first or the second. The official record chose the first and left the other 2 in a file. The death of Amado Carrillo Fuentes was officially processed by Mexican federal authorities as a matter of public health and law enforcement transition. The Juarez cartel's subsequent leadership passed to his brother, Vicente Carrillo Fuentes. The matter of the surgeons' deaths was investigated by the Mexican Attorney General's office. No charges in connection with those deaths were successfully prosecuted. The plastic surgery procedure itself, the altered face, the new identity that Carrillo Fuentes was preparing, was noted in official documents as an intelligence gap. No confirmed photograph or identification of the post-surgical appearance existed, and the question of whether the body in the clinic was in fact Amado Carrillo Fuentes was formally closed by a Mexican federal judicial determination in 1997 without DNA evidence, based on dental and physical records. But the man from Sinaloa who sat across from Carrillo Fuentes at a Guadalajara restaurant table in 1989 did not build tunnels because tunnels are dramatic. He built tunnels because he watched what happened to a man who flew on planes. He watched what happens when your infrastructure is visible from altitude. He went underground, literally, deliberately, systematically, because he had been in the same rooms as the man who went to the sky, and he had watched what the sky eventually does to you. The Sinaloa Tunnel Network, at its peak operational extent during the years 2012 through 2016, covered a mapped distance that DEA reports estimated at over a mile of active passage beneath the city of Culiacan alone. One man's death in a Mexico City clinic in 1997 produced, over the following 2 decades, more than a mile of tunnel under a single Mexican city. That is a specific kind of lesson. That is a lesson that only works if you were in the room. 5. The night of the second escape. The Altiplano prison break, July 11, 2015. It is 8:52 p.m. on July 11, 2015, and you are in cell 20 of the maximum security wing of the Altiplano Federal Penitentiary, officially designated CFERESO No. 1, located in Almoloya de Juarez, State of Mexico, approximately 90 kilometers west of Mexico City. The cell is 5.5 meters by 3 meters. You know these dimensions because you have walked them, repeatedly, in the 17 months since your February 2014 recapture, the arrest that followed the Culiacan safe house, the one the Marines announced as a success before they had checked the tunnel. The cell has a shower. The cell has a bed bolted to the wall. The cell has a camera positioned in the upper corner, the coverage angle of which you have measured by watching the shadow of the wall shift across the floor through the day cycle. In the corner of the shower stall, the corner that falls outside the camera's coverage angle, there is a rectangular section of flooring that, as of 8:52 p.m. on July 11, 2015, is no longer attached to the foundation beneath it. The routine expectation of every person in this facility, 608 inmates, a staff of several hundred, is that the night shift will proceed as it has for 17 months. What is not routine is that the rectangular section of flooring is approximately 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters, and it opens downward, and below it is a shaft. The tunnel beneath Altiplano was 1.5 kilometers long, 30 meters deep at its lowest point, and 80 centimeters wide at standard passage. It was ventilated. It was lit. It had a rail system running along the floor, consistent with the Culiacan engineering. It exited inside a construction site that workers had been operating, moving in and out of, carrying materials, parking vehicles near. For months, in proximity to a maximum security federal prison that the Mexican government had classified as escape-proof. The construction timeline that produced this tunnel, later reconstructed by Mexican federal investigators, placed the start of excavation at approximately 11 months before the escape, meaning construction began before the rearrest in February 2014 was publicly confirmed, which means someone had been building this before knowing with certainty where in the prison system the target would be housed. The exit vehicle was a white Volkswagen. It was waiting. The driver had been waiting for a period that investigators later placed at over an hour. The detail with no clean answer was how the driver knew when to have the engine running. The escape from Altiplano was confirmed by the Mexican National Security Commission in a statement issued on the morning of July 12, 2015. The statement described the discovery of the tunnel access point in the shower area of cell 20 and acknowledged that the primary target had exited the facility via the passage. International media coverage was immediate and extensive. The official position of the Mexican government, expressed by then-President Enrique Peña Nieto through his communications secretary, was that this escape was the greatest challenge to the rule of law since his administration began. What the official statement said: the prisoner escaped through a tunnel. What internal Mexican federal police investigation documents, portions of which were leaked to Mexican journalist Aníbal Hernández and described in her subsequent reporting, indicated that multiple individuals with access to the prison's security systems had failed to review camera footage from the shower area during the construction period, and that this failure had been reported internally months prior to the escape and not actioned. The internal report existed. The official statement did not reference it. The July 2015 escape was addressed through a series of official actions: the resignation of the Commissioner of the National Security Commission, the detention and investigation of several prison officials, and a comprehensive review of federal detention protocols ordered by the President's office. The tunnel was cataloged and sealed. A reward for information leading to the capture of the escaped prisoner was announced. Several prison staff were subsequently charged in connection with the escape, with convictions obtained against a number of lower-level officials. No senior federal official was charged. The protocol review produced a document, submitted to the Mexican Senate, that outlined enhanced surveillance and construction monitoring procedures for federal detention facilities. That document was filed in 2015. It remains in the record. And yet the tunnel was there for 11 months, in proximity to a maximum security federal prison, with ventilation, lighting, and a rail system, with a white Volkswagen that had been waiting at the exit for over an hour on the night of July 11, 2015. The official resolution, personnel accountable, protocols revised, the target eventually rearrested, closes the institutional question. It does not close the engineering question. 3 tunnels. Culiacán in 2014. Altiplano in 2015, Los Mochis in 2016, each one built by someone, supplied by someone, powered by someone, funded by someone. The man in the cell is eventually convicted. The people who built the tunnels are, with rare exception, not in any court record. Their names are not in any indictment. They are somewhere still, and they still know how to build a tunnel. The span of time from the first Culiacán tunnel to the Los Mochis tunnel is approximately 24 months. In that time, 3 pieces of underground infrastructure were constructed beneath active federal scrutiny. The infrastructure won twice. That is a rate of success that most engineering departments would be satisfied with. There is a line you cross in this business, and you don't know you've crossed it until you're looking back at where you were standing. After this next entry, there is no back. For the decision point. February 22, 2014, the moment before the bathtub. You are in the master bedroom of the Culiacán safe house, and it is approximately 5:30 in the morning on February 22, 2014, and you are not asleep. You have not been asleep. You heard something 11 minutes ago that was not the street sounds you have been cataloging for the 6 days you have been in this house, not the dogs, not the vehicle traffic on the main road 2 blocks over, not the 4 a.m. delivery to the convenience store at the corner that you have timed 3 nights running. What you heard 11 minutes ago was a sound with no pattern. The master bedroom has a bathroom attached. The bathroom has a modified bathtub. You have looked at this bathtub every morning for 6 days, and every morning it has looked like a bathtub. Right now you are sitting on the edge of the bed in the dark, and you are making a decision that you have made before. The decision about whether the sound you heard 11 minutes ago is the sound that means the thing you have been running from for 8 years has found you, or whether it is something that has a mundane explanation. You have made this decision correctly every previous time. Every man who is still alive in this business has made this decision correctly every previous time. The bathtub is 8 feet away. The decision is whether to stand up. The man who built this safe house, not the Culiacan house, but the system of safe houses across the city, the rotation protocol. The logistics of keeping someone invisible in a city where the people looking for them have been looking for 8 years, understood something about decision points that most people never have to understand. A decision point is not a dramatic moment. It is the opposite. It is the moment that looks exactly like every other moment, except that in this one moment, the thing you choose determines everything that follows. 11 minutes is a long time to sit on the edge of a bed in the dark. 11 minutes is long enough for the men outside, 257 of them. Though you do not know that number, you know only that there are men outside because the sound 11 minutes ago was made by a man, and because the dogs on this street are no longer making any sound at all, which is the thing that tells you everything. 11 minutes is long enough for those men to have reached the door. The bathtub is a hatch. Below the hatch is a shaft. You have looked at the bathtub for 6 days, and now you are standing up. The February 2014 Culiacan operation, as described in the official Mexican government account, proceeded as a rapid dynamic entry. Marines breached, cleared rooms, and located the tunnel access beneath the bathtub. The primary target had escaped. This is the version that every subsequent account, every journalist reconstruction, every DEA briefing summary drew from. What was described in accounts from Culiacan residents, published in Sinaloa regional newspapers within 72 hours of the raid, was a period after the Marine entry during which men were seen moving through the streets in the early morning, before dawn, in a direction away from the safe house. The accounts were specific about direction and approximate about time. They were not included in the official operational record. The Marines' own timeline of the breach, as subsequently disclosed, placed the entry at approximately 5:45 a.m. The accounts from residents placed the movement in the streets at approximately the same time, which means the tunnel exit and the street emergence occurred during the operation, not after it, while the breach was in progress, not once it was over. The two timelines do not contradict each other. They also do not resolve into a single narrative. The February 22, 2014 Culiacan operation was officially closed as a successful interdiction with an incomplete primary objective. The Mexican Secretariat of National Defense issued statements acknowledging the escape and reiterating the ongoing law enforcement priority. No disciplinary action regarding the intelligence failure, the absence of assets at the tunnel's exit point, was placed in the public record. The operation was subsequently referenced in multiple official U.S. government documents as illustrative of the operational challenges presented by the Sinaloa infrastructure, and was cited in congressional testimony as justification for enhanced U.S.-Mexico operational coordination in the subsequent period. But you made the decision. You stood up. You crossed the 8 feet to the bathtub. You made it work one more time, and then you spent 14 months running, and then you made it work again in Los Mochis, and then you sat on a curb. The official record resolves you as a defendant, a conviction, a sentence. What it does not resolve is the 11 minutes. Every man in this business who has sat on the edge of a bed in the dark and heard a sound that had no pattern and made the correct decision. There is a specific number of times you can do that before the odds resolve against you. The mathematics of it are not complicated. The mathematics of it are exactly as simple as the number of times you have been in that room, -1. You had been in that room, by the most conservative count based on the documented escape attempts, 3 times. The mathematics resolved on a street curb in Los Mochis at approximately 6:00 a.m. on January 8, 2016. 3 times -1 is 2. The third time is the curb. 3. You are in the car. The getaway that wasn't Los Mochis streets, January 8, 2016 pre-dawn. You are in a vehicle moving through the streets of Los Mochis, and the man in the passenger seat is not speaking. He has not spoken since you emerged from the drainage access point 3 blocks back. The drainage access point is a standard municipal sewer egress. A round concrete collar flush with the pavement, the kind with a cast iron cover that requires a tool to lift. And you had the tool, which means someone put it in the tunnel before you used it, which means someone knew which egress point you would emerge from, which means someone planned this exit. And yet the vehicle that was supposed to be at this egress point was not at this egress point. You found the vehicle 1 block over, engine running, driver's door open, driver absent. You do not know where the driver is. You got in. The man who was in the tunnel with you, a Sinaloa cartel security operative whose name appears in no document you will ever read, got in the passenger seat and has not spoken. The city is dark. It is approximately 5:50 a.m. You are moving, and you do not have a destination because the destination was the vehicle, and then the vehicle was supposed to take you somewhere, and the driver is gone. The streets of Los Mochis at 5:50 a.m. are not empty. There are delivery vehicles. There is a man walking a dog on the main avenue 2 blocks over. You can see the dog's silhouette under the streetlight. The city does not know what is happening on Rio Baluarte Street right now. The sound of the breach, the firefight that killed 5 men, it has not reached this block yet. Or it has reached it as an abstraction, as distant sound that a person in bed might attribute to a car backfiring or a door and then go back to sleep. You are driving and the man next to you has a hand on his phone and the phone has no signal, which means either the network is congested in this area at this hour or the network has been suppressed, and those two possibilities are not equivalent, and you know which one you believe. You turn onto a main road and then you stop. You stop because there is a vehicle checkpoint 2 blocks ahead, positioned in the last 20 minutes, and there was no checkpoint on this road at any point in the 11 days you have been in this city. You sit in the car with the engine running. You look at the checkpoint. And then you do the thing that surprises people when they hear about it later. You make a U-turn and drive back the way you came. The post-escape street events in Los Mochis were reconstructed by Mexican federal investigators using surveillance footage, witness accounts, and cellular data. The official reconstruction, portions of which were presented in subsequent legal proceedings, placed the primary target and a single companion in a vehicle in the Los Mochis street grid for a period following the tunnel emergence. The vehicle was identified. The route was partially reconstructed. What the official account said. The target was subsequently located and apprehended. What witness accounts published in regional media said. A vehicle stopped on a main road, turned around, and a short time later, a man was observed on foot on a street, sitting down. The gap between the vehicle account and the on-foot account. What happened to the vehicle, where the companion went, how a man in a moving car became a man sitting on a curb, was addressed in the official record as a matter of operational detail not disclosed for investigative reasons. The apprehension of the primary target on January 8, 2016, was officially confirmed in a statement from the Mexican National Security Commission issued at approximately 11:00 a.m. The target was in federal custody. He was transported first to a federal facility in Altiplano, the same facility from which he had escaped 18 months prior, and subsequently transferred to a different facility. The vehicle used in the post-tunnel escape attempt was recovered. The companion who had been in the tunnel was also apprehended. The matter of the absent original driver was addressed in subsequent internal investigation. A Sinaloa cartel logistics operative was later charged in connection with the operation. The circumstances of the driver's absence on the night of January 8 were not disclosed. And yet you drove. You came up out of a sewer in the dark and you found a car that shouldn't have been 1 block over and you got in it and you drove and then you stopped and made a U-turn because there was a checkpoint that wasn't there before. And then at some point you were on foot and then you were sitting on a curb. The official record resolves this into an apprehension. What it does not resolve is that moment. The moment you looked at the checkpoint and made the U-turn. That was the last decision. Not the bathtub, not the shaft, not the 11 minutes on the edge of the bed. The checkpoint, You saw it. You made the correct read that driving through it was not survivable, and you made the U-turn, which was also not survivable, just more slowly. Between those two unsurvivable options, you chose the slower one. Every person who has ever been in an impossible situation has made that choice. They have chosen the option that keeps them moving for a little while longer. The curb was 6 blocks from the checkpoint. 6 blocks is not a large distance. But between the checkpoint and the curb, you were still moving. That is, in the end, the only thing anyone in this business is ever actually choosing, to keep moving for 6 more blocks. You already know the next 2 entries. You were there. You just haven't heard anyone say it to your face yet. 2. The trial they held in a building you'll never enter. Eastern District of New York, Brooklyn, United States v. Guzman Loera, 2018-2019. You are sitting at the defendant's table in courtroom 8D south of the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York in Brooklyn, and the date is November 13, 2018, and the man across from you, not the judge, not the prosecutor, but the man sitting in the witness stand who is speaking into a microphone and whose voice is being translated into Spanish through a headset you are wearing, is someone you trusted with things that have no dollar value, only consequence value. He is a former associate, a man who made decisions alongside yours for years, and he is doing the thing that the institutional language calls cooperating with the government, and that the street-level language calls something that cannot be printed. The room has 42 gallery seats and they are full. There are journalists. There are federal agents. There are family members of yours and family members of victims, and they are not in the same rows. The routine expectation of this day, day 4 of what will ultimately become 6 weeks of trial, is testimony, cross-examination, recess, testimony. What is not routine is that the man in the witness stand is describing a conversation that took place in a room that you are now the only person in this courtroom who remembers from the inside. The cooperating witnesses in United States v. Guzman Loera were extraordinary in their specificity. Jesus Reynaldo Zambada Garcia, the brother of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, testified. Miguel Angel Martinez, a former logistics coordinator, testified. A DEA special agent testified to intercepts spanning years. The prosecutors, including Assistant U.S. Attorneys Adam Fels, Gina Parlavecchio, and Andrea Goldberg, moved through the evidence with a methodical pace that the courtroom described as deliberate, and that you, in the defendant's chair, experienced differently. They called 56 witnesses. They entered approximately 300 exhibits into evidence. The trial lasted 39 days of testimony. The man in the witness stand today is describing an amount of money, an amount that he counted himself in a room with both hands and needed more time than he expected to finish. And he is describing it flatly, in the past tense, the way you describe something that is finished. The detail with no clean answer is that the man describing it has a plea agreement that reduces his own exposure, and the man being described is wearing a headset and listening to himself described in the past tense, which is a specific kind of thing to experience while you are still present tense. The trial of Joaquin Guzman Loera was covered by international media. The New York Times, The Washington Post, Reuters, and dozens of other outlets published daily reconstructions. The cooperating witnesses' testimony was public record, open courtroom, transcripts available. What emerged from the trial in terms of public knowledge was a detailed organizational portrait of the Sinaloa cartel as it operated between the 1980s and 2016. What the coverage said: the cartel bribed Mexican presidents, ministers, and generals. It moved hundreds of tons of product. It collected revenue in amounts that required industrial counting equipment. What the official trial record said, in the dry language of exhibits and stipulations, was exactly what the coverage said, with one addition. Several cooperating witnesses described conversations and transactions that implicated current Mexican government officials who were not named in any indictment, were not charged, and were referred to in court with alphanumeric designations. Those designations remain in the transcript. The names behind them remain in a sealed portion of the proceedings. The jury in United States v. Guzman Loera returned a verdict of guilty on all 10 counts on February 12, 2019, after deliberating for 6 hours. The counts included engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, conspiracy to import and distribute narcotics, use of firearms, and money laundering. Sentencing was scheduled and subsequently conducted on July 17, 2019, at which Judge Brian Cogan imposed a sentence of life in prison plus 30 years, to be served at ADX Florence in Colorado, the federal Supermax facility. The defendant addressed the court briefly at sentencing, stating that his trial had been, in his characterization, not a fair trial. The government's response noted the verdict of the jury. No appeal has produced a reversal. The conviction is final, but the alphanumeric designations are still in the transcript. The sealed portion of the proceedings has not been unsealed. The names behind the designations, the officials, the ministers, the figures in the institutional apparatus of the Mexican government who were described by cooperating witnesses in open court in Brooklyn, are not in any document that has been made public. They are in a room that is more sealed than ADX Florence, because ADX Florence at least has a publicly known address. The sealed portion of United States v. Guzman Loera has a case number and a filing date and a courthouse, and behind those 3 institutional facts is a list of names that 56 witnesses, 300 exhibits, and 39 days of testimony produced, and that list is not available. The trial closed the defendant. It did not close the list. And the list is the point. The list is what all the tunnels and all the escapes and all the 11-minute decisions on the edge of a bed in the dark were ultimately protecting. The list is still protected. The man on the list is not in a cell in Colorado. The man in the cell in Colorado had a driver who wasn't there, and a curb, and a checkpoint he couldn't drive through. The list had none of those problems. Before we get to number 1, if you've been here from the beginning of this video, you already know that what's coming isn't a revelation. It's a reckoning. You don't need a dramatic moment for that. You just need to understand that you already know what happened. You just haven't admitted out loud that you understand what it means. Subscribe if you haven't. What's coming next is the kind of thing you'll want to be able to find again. 1. The morning IT ended and what ended with it. ADX Florence, Supermax, January 2023, and the question the cell cannot answer. You are in a cell that is 7 feet wide and 12 feet long, and it is not a cell in the conventional sense. It is a concrete room with a poured concrete desk, a poured concrete stool, a bed frame integrated into the wall, and a door that opens, if it opens, for approximately 1 hour per day. The facility is the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum in Florence, Colorado, elevation 5,000 feet, surrounded by terrain that does not reward walking in any direction without equipment and preparation. You are not thinking about the terrain. You have not seen the terrain. You have not been outside in a manner that would allow you to assess the terrain in a period that the official record places as beginning July 17, 2019. The date today, the date in this entry, is not specific because the days in this room do not have the kind of specificity that distinguishes one from another. What is specific is the following. You are the most wanted man in the Western Hemisphere who was caught, and you are in the room that the United States government built to be the last room. The routine expectation of everyone associated with this facility, from the Bureau of Prisons to the federal judiciary, is that this room is a terminal point. What is not routine? What has never been routine in the history of this organization, in the history of the tunnels and the ranches and the Durango Mountains and the Los Machis curb, is that a terminal point has ever remained terminal for long. ADX Florence houses, at any given time, approximately 400 of the most dangerous or highest security risk inmates in the federal system. The roster has included, at various times, the Unabomber, The Oklahoma City bombing co-conspirator, the World Trade Center bomber, the man who attempted to assassinate a president. You are on this roster. You are in a cell next to, or several cells from. The geometry of the facility does not make adjacency intuitive. Men whose cases defined American legal and security history. What you notice, in the way that a man who spent 3 decades building underground infrastructure and evading 257 Marines notices things, is that the facility was designed for a specific kind of dangerous person. The individual actor, the ideologue, the lone cell terrorist whose network is severed from him by his incarceration. The cell is designed to contain a person. The question it cannot answer, the question that no concrete desk or integrated bed frame or 1-hour daily movement window can answer, is whether a person whose organization survived 3 escapes, 2 recaptures, and 39 days of testimony in Brooklyn has been separated from a network, or whether the network has simply reclassified this cell as the current location of one of its assets. In the years following the July 2019 sentencing, the official position of the U.S. Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice has been that the incarceration is functioning as intended. The subject is isolated. The sentence is being served. The matter is resolved. The Sinaloa cartel, in official DEA assessments published in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, continued to be described as the most powerful transnational drug trafficking organization operating in the Western Hemisphere. Revenue estimates in the DEA's own National Drug Threat Assessment reports for those years described figures consistent with or exceeding the figures cited at trial. What the official record said, the defendant is incarcerated and the matter is resolved. What the official DEA threat assessment said, simultaneously, the organization he led remains the primary supplier of controlled substances to the United States market. Both of these statements are in official documents produced by agencies of the same government. They have not been reconciled. The legal case was closed on July 17, 2019. Life in prison plus 30 years. ADX Florence. No parole mechanism. No appeal that has produced a reversal. The case number is 09CR00466, Eastern District of New York. The defendant's son, Joaquin Guzman Lopez, was charged in a separate indictment in the Northern District of Illinois in 2023. The defendant's other sons, known collectively in law enforcement as Los Chapitos, were designated as the primary operational leadership of the Sinaloa cartel in a 2023 DEA assessment. The matter of the original defendant is institutionally closed. The matter of the organization is institutionally described as ongoing. These 2 designations exist in the same filing system, in the same government, on the same servers, and they have not produced a contradiction that any official has been asked to resolve publicly. And yet here is the thing that the concrete room cannot answer, and that the sentencing document cannot answer, and that the verdict cannot answer, and that no official designation produced by any government in any language has answered. The tunnels are still there. Not the specific tunnels, those were sealed, cataloged, photographed, and filed. The knowledge of how to build them is still there. The men who built them are still there, in the sense that they are alive and not incarcerated, and not named in any document you have access to. The organization that paid for them is still operating, and somewhere in Los Mochis, on a street that a regional journalist described, and that no official document confirmed, there is a sewer access point that a man came out of at approximately 5:50 a.m. on January 8, 2016. The city has had construction crews working in that neighborhood since then. No official has designated that access point in any public record. It is a standard municipal sewer egress, the kind with a cast iron cover that requires a tool to lift. The tool was left in the tunnel. No official document mentions the tool. The span of time between the moment you went into the first Culiacan tunnel and the moment you sat on the curb in Lowe's Machis is 14 months. The span of time between the curb in Lowe's Machis and this video is approximately 9 years. In those 9 years, the DEA has continued to describe the Sinaloa cartel in annual threat assessments as the primary narcotics supplier to the United States market. 9 years. Not 9 months. 9 years. The cell in Florence, Colorado is real. The assessment is also real. The space between those two realities, between the closed case file and the open threat assessment, is not a contradiction. It is a room. And the room, unlike the cell, has no defined dimensions. It has no camera in the upper corner. It has no door that opens for 1 hour a day and then closes. It is just a room. And the question the room asks, the only question it asks, the question it has been asking since the Guadalajara restaurant in 1989 and the Altiplano bathtub in 2015 and the Lowe's Machis curb at 5:50 in the morning, is not where is the man. The question is, what does it mean that the man was always the least important thing in the room? That's the list. Life in prison plus 30 years. The organization is in the threat assessment. Both of those sentences are true. You know what to do with that. If this is your first video with us, subscribe. If you've been here for a while, you already know. Either way, the next one goes somewhere most channels won't follow. We'll see you there.